we are going to discuss about the very important Conference of Parties 30, which was recently hosted by Brazil at Belém. Now, this is a very important topic of current affairs and also of environment, and we can expect questions in exams from this topic. So, let us discuss the important points about this COP 30, which you should know from exam point of view. So, the COP 30 was held at Belém, and let us look at the location of Belém on the map of Brazil. Sometimes the location of these places can also be asked, so we should be aware about the location. So, here we have South America's map, and in South America we can see Brazil, right. Brazil is the largest country of South America, and the location of Belém in Brazil is here, right. So, on the northern side we can see that Belém is located here, and here we can see the capital of Brazil, which is Brasilia. Okay. Now, this Conference of Parties 30 of UNFCCC, which is United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, was hosted by Brazil, and Brazil, the host nation, called it as an implementation COP, right, implementation COP. So, this was referred as implementation COP, and you can remember here that the previous COP, which is COP 29, which was hosted by Azerbaijan at Baku last year in 2024, it was billed as the finance COP. That means the main emphasis or the focus of the conference was on finance, how to arrange the climate finance. So, COP 29 was finance COP, and COP 30 was billed as the implementation COP by the Brazilian government. So, this can also be asked in exam, we should be aware about this. Now, what were the important things or key takeaways of the COP 30? So, here we can see the important outcomes of Conference of Parties 30 at Belém. So, this was billed as the implementation COP. There was a Belém Health Action Plan, which was decided. Then a Belém Forex pledge was also agreed to by the participating countries. A tropical forest forever facility was also a key outcome of Conference of Parties 30. Then Belém political package was also decided. Then we had a Santa Marta conference, which will be hosted by Colombia and the Netherlands next year. This was also agreed in this Belém summit. And Mutirão strategy, right. So, this is a Portuguese term, Mutirão, and it is very, very important. Question can be asked about this Mutirão strategy. So, I will be discussing this also later in this video. And OPEN, that is Open Planetary Intelligence Network, this was also decided. So, now let us look at one by one the important takeaways of Conference of Parties 30. Right. So, the first one was the Belém Health Action Plan, which was decided. So, what was decided under this? It basically aims to strengthen global health systems to cope better with the impacts of climate change. So, what is the Belém Health Action Plan? It is basically to strengthen the global health system to cope better with the impacts of climate change. And two important terms were discussed here. One was health equity, the other was climate justice. Health equity means that everyone should get a fair opportunity to be as healthy as possible by removing obstacles. And climate justice means that we need to understand the climate change impact is felt most acutely by the people who are on the margins of the society. So, here it says that climate change disproportionately impacts the vulnerable communities who are least responsible for it, right. They have caused they have made the least contribution to climate change, but they are most affected by the problems due to climate change. So, that is the concept of climate justice and health equity. The next key takeaway was very, very important, tropical forest forever facility, and under this what has been decided? The aim is to mobilize $125 billion. Mobilize $125 billion through public and private investment using returns to pay nations that conserve forests. So, basic idea is that the nations which will conserve their tropical forest, they will be paid some money for conserving the same. And India has also joined as observer. So, India has not joined as member, but as observer. That is very important, can be asked in exam. Now, it will be based on payment for performance model, and it will reward tropical forest countries with a continuous source of funding as they preserve their forest. And the Brazil or the Brazilian government has initiated this by making a contribution of $1 billion to the Tropical Forest Forever facility. Very, very important. India has joined as an observer, and Brazil has made the first contribution of $1 billion to TFFF, plus the aim is to mobilize $125 billion, right, and it is based on payment for performance model. Next key takeaway was the Belém political package. Under this, we can say that this was the main outcome document of COP 30, and it emphasized climate finance, adaptation, also a just transition to green economy, gender inclusion, and strengthening global cooperation with Mutirão, spirit of collective action, right. So, this term MUTIRAO, this is called as or pronounced as Mutirão, right. Now, next important takeaway was the decision taken to hold a conference in Santa Marta next year in April 2026. Now, this will be hosted by Colombia and co-hosted by Netherlands, and this will be held around April 2026. Now, the purpose of this conference is to create a global framework for a just transition away from fossil fuels, because on this transition away from fossil fuels, agreement could not be reached during COP 30. Now, it will focus on legal, economic and social dimensions of this transition, because livelihoods will be impacted, the countries will be impacted which are major fossil fuel producing countries. So, everything has to be taken into account. For this, Santa Marta conference will be held next year. Santa Marta is in Colombia, and the conference will be co-hosted by Colombia and Netherlands, April 2026. Again, important from exam point of view. Next key takeaway was OPIN. So, OPIN stands for Open Planetary Intelligence Network. It is a new initiative to standardize climate data, and it focused on unifying climate data systems, which will help in faster decision making on climate change issues. Next important takeaway was the Global Ethical Stocktake. Now, it is an initiative which seeks to integrate ethical considerations into climate policy making. Ethical considerations will be taken into account while taking decisions on climate change issues. Now, it is inspired by the Global Stocktake, which assesses global progress on Paris Agreement. Paris Agreement comes from the Conference of Parties 21, which was held in 2021 in 2015 in Paris, right, COP 21 in Paris in 2015. Now, its Asia edition of this Global Ethical Stocktake was held in New Delhi in September 2025. So, this is also important that the Asia edition of this initiative, Global Ethical Stocktake, was hosted by India in New Delhi in September 2025. Next is again very important, Belém 4X pledge. So, question can be asked, what is Belém 4X pledge, what it deals with? So, it deals with sustainable fuels. Now, this is a commitment made by a number of countries including India. So, India is also part of the Belém 4X pledge. India, Brazil, Japan and Italy to at least quadruple means to at least make it 4 times the global production and use of sustainable fuels by 2035, right. So, the basic aim is to quadruple the global production and use of sustainable fuels by 2035, and from which levels? From the 2024 levels. And which are sustainable fuels? So, biofuels, biogas, synthetic fuels, hydrogen, these are referred as sustainable fuels. Now, this Belém 4X pledge was launched on 14th October 2025 at a pre-COP 30 meeting in Brasilia, the capital of Brazil. So, this was launched before the COP 30, Belém 4X pledge, that is for increasing the production and use of sustainable fuels by at least 4 times by 2035 from 2024 levels. India is also a part of this Belém 4X pledge. Next key takeaway was the Belém Declaration on Hunger, Poverty and People-Centered Climate Action. Very importantly, India has not signed it yet. So, India is not a signatory to this as of now. Now, this pledge, the Declaration on Hunger, Poverty and People-Centered Climate Action, it basically aims to place social justice and poverty alleviation at the core of global climate efforts. Now, 43 countries and European Union has signed this declaration, Belém Declaration on Hunger, Poverty and People-Centered Climate Action, but very importantly, India is yet to sign it. India has not signed this declaration yet. Next key takeaway was National Adaptation Plan Implementation Alliance. So, it is a global initiative launched at COP 30 to accelerate the implementation of national adaptation plans, and it is a multi-stakeholder partnership to mobilize funding and strengthen national coordination and turn adaptation plans into investment ready projects. Right. So, basically it is to provide support to the countries to make sure that they are able to follow up on their national adaptation plans against climate change. Last but not the least, very important, Mutirão strategy, right. So, this is a Portuguese term. We know that in South America Spanish is the most spoken language, but in Brazil it is Portuguese. Portuguese is the most common language in Brazil. So, Mutirão is a Portuguese term and it means collective action, and it basically refers to Brazilian tradition of collective community driven mobilization, So, very likely that a question can be asked in exam that what is this Mutirão strategy. So, it is basically a collective community driven mobilization, and this was in news in context of COP 30 hosted by Brazil at Belém. So, basic aim of Mutirão strategy is to close the gap between pledges and delivery, right. That is why COP 30 was all about implementation, though not much progress was made, but yes, it was all about the implementation of various commitments made during various conference of parties of UNFCCC. Right. Now, let us also learn little bit about UNFCCC, United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, and some basic facts which are asked in exam. So, UNFCCC, it stands for United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. It was established in 1992 from the Rio Earth Summit. So, the Rio Earth Summit, which is also known as the Earth Summit, was hosted by Brazil at Rio de Janeiro in 1992, and out of this Earth Summit in Rio, 3 important bodies came into existence, which are UNFCCC, UNCCD and CBD. UNFCCC is United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, which we are discussing. The other one is United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification, very important, and CBD is Convention on Biological Diversity. So, these 3 important conventions owe their origin to the 1992 Earth Summit at Rio. Now, UNFCCC was established in 1992. It came into force from 1994, right. So, it started operating from 1994. It has 197 members. The Conference of Parties, which is held annually, is the highest decision making body of UNFCCC, and the first Conference of Parties, which is COP 1, was hosted by Germany at Berlin in 1995. Right. So, COP 1 in Berlin 1995. The secretariat or headquarter of UNFCCC is at Bonn in Germany, and this is here since 1996. Earlier it was in Geneva, then it was shifted to Bonn. So, these are some very important facts about UNFCCC which we should know. Now, the Conference of Parties meetings, they are held by rotation in 5 UN designated geographical regions: Africa, Asia Pacific, Eastern Europe, Latin America and Caribbean, and Western Europe and others, right. So, these are the 5 geographical regions in which the Conference of Parties are hosted by rotation. Now, we should also know about some important Conference of Parties and where they were hosted, in which year. So, COP 1 Berlin 1995, very importantly COP 8 in Delhi, right, in the year 2002. India has also expressed its intention to host the COP 33, which we will see later. COP 21 Paris 2015, very important for the Paris Agreement. COP 26 in Glasgow, where the Prime Minister had given the LIFE campaign, or the Lifestyle for Environment campaign, was introduced by India, right, LIFE campaign. So, this was here only. Then COP 27 Sharm el Sheikh, Egypt 2022, the Loss and Damage Fund was initiated here, and the Loss and Damage Fund was operationalized in Dubai, UAE, the Loss and Damage Fund. Then COP 29 at Baku, Azerbaijan, which was referred as the Finance COP. Then COP 30 Implementation COP. At Belém, Brazil. COP 31 will be hosted by Turkey. COP 32 will be hosted by Ethiopia at Addis Ababa. Turkey has not finalized the place where it is going to host, but Turkey will be hosting the COP 31, and then COP 32 by Ethiopia. COP 33 has not been decided, but India has expressed its interest. So, most likely India can also get this chance to host the COP 33 in 2028, because 2025 COP 30, 2026 COP 31, 2027 COP 32 and 2028 COP 33. So, again this is also something which we should know. Now, finally, there is a question for you which you can attempt, and you can write down the answer in comments. So, let me just read out the question. You have to identify which of the following statements are correct. Statement number 1 is COP 30 was referred as Finance COP by the host country Brazil. Statement number 2 is India has joined Tropical Forest Forever Facility TFFF as member. Third statement is India is not part of Belém 4X pledge. And fourth statement is Santa Marta conference will be co-hosted by Colombia and Australia. You have to pick the right option, and you have to identify which of these statements are correct. So, this is it from my side for some information on Conference of Parties 30 hosted by Brazil at Belém. I will see you in the next video. Thank you.
For more informative content, like, share and subscribe, and do not forget to press the bell icon to get the notifications.